Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I guess this is our last show before Christmas this week. And I've got Jamie Spencer with Ingleside joining me today. But before we get started, I just want to say thanks so much for watching Foresight TV. I'm glad you're joining us for this broadcast. At Foresight, we are committed to improving the lives of people who live and work in senior living. So we would love to hear from you about what you're doing to improve the lives of residents and team members. And we'd also love to learn about what we can do to serve you better. What should we be talking about? Are there things we shouldn't be talking about? In addition to Foresight TV, we produce all kinds of really good content. We have at least one LinkedIn post every single day. We've got the Foresight podcast, Tech Tuesday, and perhaps the most impactful thing that we do is to publish the Foresight website where there's new leadership content every day. It's free. It's easy to subscribe to. You can see the QR code up on the screen. You can also see the link in the chat. We would love to have you just click on that, give us your email address, and you are good to go. Finally, I just want to say I appreciate your passion for the industry and the people that you serve. And with that, let's get started. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Jamie, welcome. Let's start with a little bit about you and Ingleside. And one of the things I'd really like to hear is how you got into this amazing senior living business.
Well, thanks, Steve. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here on your show. Happy to be a guest here at the end of the year. Hard to believe we're at the end of 2024, going into 2025. As you said, my name's Jamie Spencer. I am the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Growth Officer for Ingleside. Ingleside is a system based in Washington, in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We're a nonprofit, predominantly life plan community system. We have 3 communities, one in Rockville, Maryland, one in Washington, D.C., and one in Lake Ridge, which is also Woodbridge, Virginia. So we cover the D.C. metro market, and we have all levels of care, and we are passionate about serving our residents. So how did I get into the industry? I am a CPA, Certified Public Accountant by training. Went to school in the Northeast and went through sort of some different iterations of careers, but found myself working for a national practice that was senior living consulting. And that's really where I cut my teeth in the senior living industry, doing a lot of financial modeling around projects and CFO level work, controller level work, and have since transitioned to the provider side. And am happily at Ingleside. I've been there over 3 years now. We're an organization that's thriving right now and really looking to grow and looking for what's that next step. How can we serve more seniors in our markets and even beyond our markets? So that's a little bit about me.
Great. So does growth, just out of curiosity, does growth mean adding another campus, expanding existing campuses, or doing other services outside, or any or all of that?
Yeah, it's multi-pronged for sure. We really are focused on first and foremost expanding our existing campuses where we have land, and really two of the 3 are our focus right now. Adding more independent living units. We sort of have a magic number where we like to be at 300 units or more. One of our communities on the IL side, and then of course we have the other levels of care. One of our communities is above that number and doing very well from a financial performance perspective. The other 2 are below that number, are still performing well, but we see more economies of scale and the benefit of that growth on those campuses. So that's prong number 1. Number 2, seeking partnerships, whether that's through management agreements, affiliations, that sort of thing. As a multi-site, we know there's not other nonprofit single sites out there that are that are looking to potentially at some point become part of a larger organization, maybe have struggled with recruiting, talent recruitment and retention, other challenges. And I think we're well positioned to do that. And then the third prong really, we have 4 prongs, actually. The third prong is looking for maybe one project for a new development over the next several years. We're finally at a point where I think we as an industry can get back into development mode a little bit. And then we are looking at that's really on the community side of things. On the non-community side and other services, we're looking to do that through partnership. And actually we have had for the last, call it 9 years, a home care business that we divested earlier this year, actually, and now serve that function through a partnership. So we still have a bit of skin in that game, but we found that as a CCRC operator, life plan community operator, home care, we just weren't doing it well enough, and we wanted to make sure we could do it as best we could.
So one of the things I'm a little bit curious about is skilled nursing. I know that there are a number of life plan CCRCEs that have sort of look to, I don't know, I guess for lack of a better word, outsource the skilled nursing side of that. Do you have thoughts on that and where you see the future of skilled nursing?
Sure. Yeah. Skilled nursing, and you said it right there. It is a challenge. It is a challenging business to be in. The staffing shortages have certainly impacted us. We don't use a lot of agency, but we use some at one of our campuses in particular. We've actually had that conversation sort of, ongoing for multiple years. But we're dedicated to our skilled nursing facilities. They may get a little smaller. I don't think we'll grow skilled nursing. And in expansions, if we do a CCRC or a life plan community expansion, we'd probably still consider skilled nursing as a component of that, so that we have that all-encompassing offering. But we wouldn't be interested in building new skilled nursing, acquiring skilled nursing, that sort of thing. So, and then as far as outsourcing, we've had a couple of conversations. We don't have the confidence that to outsource it and feel comfortable with the quality at this point. We haven't gone deep into that, but we value having some control over that.
Yeah, to me, the outsourcing really looks tough. On Tuesday, I did a live stream on our Tech Tuesday with Lori Orloff, who's an industry analyst for the aging tech space. And after we got off the air, she and I were talking about something that's really near and dear to my heart, and that's storytelling. That she said, I don't understand why senior living communities don't spend more time telling stories about what a great job they do. And she proceeded to tell me very short stories, because our time was limited, that she had 2 loved ones who were actually in skilled nursing, where it was a wonderful experience. Yeah. And so I think that if you outsource it, it becomes much, much harder to create those kinds of experiences. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And if I could just say one more thing on that is, skilled nursing is not an area where, we go by no margin, no mission, right? I mean, we live that every day. We're very mission focused, but we also need to generate margin. We know that skilled nursing is not where we're generating, if any margin, it's really more of a break even. And I think when you outsource it, they're seeking margin. And that's not to punish those who are seeking margin. It's a viable cause, but we effectively subsidize it to some extent. It's part of our mission, and we're committed to it.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about challenges in the industry. And I want to really start with the labor challenge. I think that, one of the shifts that we've seen that's been really positive is that occupancy across the board, according to Nick, continues to go up fairly significantly every year. A bunch of us boomers are growing older, and there's not very much new construction because of interest rates. And but it's not all roses, particularly because costs, in particular labor costs, continue to really accelerate. So can you just talk a little bit about labor costs and how you guys are looking at that, and how do you fix that?
Yeah,
Or maybe
absolutely.
fix is not the right word. Deal with it anyway. Address it is the word I want to
How do we address it? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Certainly a challenge for us, particularly in our region, which is, the Washington, D.C. metro area is a very expensive place, effectively. Particularly in Washington, D.C., we have a union in the district. We do not in our other jurisdictions. And that's one thing unique about Ingleside. We operate in 3 jurisdictions, although our communities are about an hour from each other. And so we have certainly been challenged with labor. And the other thing that's been challenging, particular to us, is, and you said it, is there hasn't been a lot of building, except for maybe in the Washington, D.C. metro area, where there's 3,500 new units coming online over sort of this 3 to 5 year period. And what we've found is that, and I understand it from a business perspective, is there's a lot of recruiting of our staff to come help open these new communities. And so what have we done to address that, as you asked? We have really examined a variety of ways to retain our employees. That's one of the ways in which we feel we can really excel, is through retention. Recruiting, obviously, always there, but we found that we lose a lot of employees in the first 6 months, chasing $1 here or $1 there, particularly on the hourly wage scale level. And so we've made a couple things. One is we have a 2025 through 2029 strategic plan that was just approved by our board a few months ago. And our number one priority is people. So we're very focused on our people. And that can be all stakeholders, but really particularly on employees. Wages, we've done, we've imposed, and I've said this to our residents, and some fully understand it, and I'd say most get it and most are supportive, is that we have to pay our employees at a level that is competitive with the market, especially to retain them. And so our rate increases have been reflective of that. We've had to go higher than normal inflation, so to speak. And, going back a few years, we had a lot of inflation across the board, including labor. The non-labor component has come down. The labor component for us, particularly with the competition, has still been very high. And so we've had to, follow that and we've had success with that. Our turnover's, around 30% and falling. So I think we've been successful there. We've also implemented some, just employee measures or certain other things that employees can access. We have a foundation as a nonprofit, and through that foundation, we have a scholarship program, and it can be really for anything. Our employees, if they want to go on to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer, whatever they may want to do, they can, it doesn't have to pertain to the job. So that's another benefit. And I think the other big one, and we've had a lot of success with this, is the citizenship program, where for those who are not U.S. citizens and maybe are here on some sort of a visa or a green card, we have great stories about this, where they've come and they work with us, and we will help pay for that citizenship, and we even have residents who will help tutor for the citizenship test and go through that whole process, and it's been very successful. We have some great stories that have come from that.
That's cool. Well, I don't know that we have time for that today, but I would actually love to collect those stories. I haven't quite sort of formalized it, but I keep thinking that as I look at our content for the next year, I keep thinking this ought to be maybe the year of the story. And I know that every day there are amazing, life-changing stories that happen in senior living. And honestly, rarely I hear them, and somehow it's not sort of our ethos to be telling those stories. I think perhaps because it feels like it's bragging, and yet I think it's the one kind of bragging that's actually should be allowed, right? It should be able to say, we have this person working for us, and we changed their family's life. We changed the trajectory of their family. We've got these residents. So anyway, one of the questions I have about staffing is, there's sort of a lot of talk about how terrible the work ethic is of the younger generation. I'm sort of a mixed feelings about that. I have Jada, who's producing here behind the scenes, is just 2 years out of college, and I only wish I had her work ethic as when I was her age. So kudos to her. Are you finding that there's a challenge with work ethic at younger or just across the board?
Yeah, I think to some extent, and I'm probably within our organization of 850 employees, I'm probably not the best one to ask that question because I'm interacting with a fraction of our workforce on a daily basis. I can tell you the team that reports to me has a very strong work ethic. I think in some of the lowest wage scales, the servers, that sort of level, I think we've had some challenges with that, but I don't necessarily point my finger at the employee. I think it can be, sometimes training and the effort to give our employees the tools to be successful in their job. And so, maybe there's some inherent. There's always going to be folks who aren't the right fit for the organization. But I think, we've put, again, through our strategic plan, which our number one focus is people, and we have some other strategic items in there. Training has become a big opportunity and focus for us. Career ladders, give our employee base something to look forward to, a way for them to grow, and evolve with the organization, even starting at the entry level and working their way up. And so there's a lot that I think we still need to work on, but there's a lot that we've been successful with. But I wouldn't blanket say, that the work ethic is bad. I think sometimes it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with what you said. I tend to think that people's work ethic is actually very malleable. And if you treat people well, they have great work ethics, and if you treat them badly, they have poor work ethics. So I appreciate that a lot. So the other question that I hear talked about a lot in the industry is we baby boomers, and I'm right smack dab in the middle. I'm still a little bit young for senior living. Okay. But there's sort of this perception that we baby boomers are, I don't know, going to want something very different. We're going to be more demanding. And there's a part of me that thinks that's true. And there's a part of me that thinks that when I get to be 90, I'm actually not going to be very much different than when my father was when he was 90. So. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that we talk about within our leadership team at Ingleside a lot, about what is it that the future resident is going to demand. And we have sort of higher end premier communities, and so we have residents who are discerning in their tastes. I think dining is a big area, where there's a lot of focus. And we're seeing this in our market where some of the new competition, and most of it's for-profit rental, is really focused on dining programs and concierge, and they're putting themselves forth as quote unquote ultra luxury. And I think there's a cohort of the boomers that's going to really appeal to. But I also think that and we've talked a lot about this internally, there's the planners, and there's the more, I don't know, how do you say it? Like they don't want quite as much. They want simplistic. We have a lot of very highly educated folks in our communities who are world travelers, and, they want good conversation, and they want good neighbors that they can do interesting things with. And they don't necessarily we provide a lot of things, but they don't necessarily need a lot of glitz and glam, if you will. And so I think this demographic wave that's here and coming more so, it provides a lot of different opportunities for providers to try different things out and probably be successful in a lot of them. And I don't think there's just one solution. And as an entrance fee community, we've talked a lot about, people won't still want to pay an entrance fee. And I'm still pretty bullish on it. I think the planners like the entrance fee model. They can, plan for the estate and, have a lower monthly service fee. And I think that still works for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I that's an area that's a really interesting area. I've thought a lot about that, and I think my I probably would be disinclined to do an entrance fee personally. But
Hmm.
again, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, might have told you that I want to make enough money so I have to never live in senior living. And now that as I'm approaching my 70th birthday, I've been in plenty of senior living communities where I'd say I never want to live here, but I've been in
Yeah,
some where I looked at it and said, I can see myself living here.
sure.
I like the conversations. I see these groups of guys getting together in the morning for coffee and
Yep.
talking about world events and things, and that becomes super, super exciting. So, as you look at the economy, we sort of have this ongoing battle about inflation, right?
Sure.
You're practically right in the middle of it right now as we sit here. I don't know, maybe they voted on something, right? But Washington D.C. is on the verge of shutting down
Shutting down.
government, right? Because of a budget.
12:01 tomorrow, I think, is the time.
What's that?
I think it's 12:01 tomorrow that it shuts down.
Yeah, and most of a big part of what this is all underpinning this is trying to keep inflation under control, right? And it's a big issue for older people
Sure.
because they have fixed assets. And so, how are you seeing that play, particularly in the life plan CCRC market?
Yeah, I think, there has been a lot of news this week related to the shutdown, related to the Fed dropped the rates earlier this week, and indicated that next year they don't intend to do probably more than two rate decreases on the federal funds lending rate, because inflation while it's come down, it hasn't come down to where they want it, and it seems to not. It's sort of stuck there.
Yeah.
And I think, it kind of ties to what I was saying earlier about labor. Labor is still tight. There's still just there's not an excess level of labor, particularly in our industry and some others. And so I think we will likely continue to see inflation playing a big factor here, in terms of the costs of running a life plan community. We figure, rule of thumb generally is that 50% or greater of our annual costs is labor. And so again, when we're seeing labor go up 5, 10, 15%, that's way above the CPI, which is, 2-3% or somewhere around there. I forget exactly the most recent release, but I think that in terms of what we're experiencing, the goods and services have leveled off quite a bit. The labor has not. And from my perspective as the CEO or CFO rather of the organization, we have to look at maintaining our financial viability and strength, and ensuring that we're charging the proper monthly service fees as well as entrance fees at the proper rate to ensure that. And we've seen tons of demand for our communities, and we've been able to do that year over year and keep up with inflation effectively. I think that's where communities like ours get in a lot of trouble, is when they don't and overprotect. And I hate to say it that way, but we obviously want to protect the residents, but we have to protect the institution as well, because a lot of those residents have millions of dollars tied up in the institution. So it's a give and take in terms of what's the lowest rate increase we can handle to ensure our viability and not put too much pressure on the residents.
Yeah, and ultimately, the survival of the organization is really the survival of the residents, right? So
Completely.
they're just like that.
Yes.
A question that I'd like to at least maybe touch a little bit on is: do you see AI and or other technologies as being at least part of the solution to the labor shortage?
To some degree, yes. I think, and I am admittedly not an overly techie person. We have a chief information officer who handles that world and does a lot of work within the senior living industry. We have several robots on our campuses that are sort of the piloting of some of that sort of thinking, particularly, I think they're all in dining. We have 2 or 3 per campus that are assisting with the meals, whether bringing plates out, dishes out, or taking dirty dishes back to the kitchen and that sort of thing, although you can't have those on the same tray. And so, but it is interesting to see them kind of buzzing around, especially when they're getting to know the dining room and you walk by and there's nobody around and they're buzzing through there, but which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think AI is going to have a role. I mean, look at how much investment and how much prominence it's been and media coverage it's received this year. I think there's certainly a role for AI. I don't think we'll get away from the human touch that this business requires, and particularly with elder adults, you've got to have that soft hand and kindness that goes into serving our residents that doesn't come from a robot. And I think that's still going to be critical.
Yeah. I think most of the people I talk to about both AI and robots is that the idea is that it frees up people to do the more interesting people stuff. And so I find it to be super exciting. So as you look, if you were to just step back and look at the industry, not Ingleside specifically, What do you think that we're doing particularly well? What are the areas you think we need to be fixing?
Yeah, look, I think most providers in the industry, for profit and nonprofit, are in it for the right reasons. I mean, there's for the for-profits, there's a profit motive, but I think sometimes for-profits are poo-pooed a little bit, at least in our nonprofit world, for being profit-driven. But I do think they're most of them, maybe not all, but most are in it to provide great service to residents and care for the elderly. And I think we do a good job with that, and I think we evolve and change the offerings in response to changing market demographics and that sort of thing. I think as an industry, we do that pretty well. Where I think we maybe are a little behind, and certainly are, going back to the last conversation we just had about our CIO would certainly say that from a business perspective, we're behind where other industries are. Yep. In terms of utilization of AI, robotic process automation, tools that can help make the business of senior living, more effective and efficient. I think there's room for us to grow there. And one of the things that's dizzying to me is the amount of different softwares that get developed to serve our industry, and trying to piece them all together. We took an inventory. We used something like 35 different softwares to run our business. And like 3 to 4 of those are core, GL, the client, the point click care and those sorts of things. But we have all these other things that are bolted on, and I don't know how efficient that really is. And I don't know that we do a great job, but I think we're getting better year over year with that.
Yeah, that software as a service stuff is very, very difficult. And I don't know what it's like for you. And of course, my running a small business, my personal, my business life sort of get together, and I'm sort of meld together, but I'm guessing I probably am paying for 20 or 30 of those things that we use for different, from Canva to StreamYard, where we're doing our broadcasts.
Yeah, right.
Just our email list, all that stuff. So it's very, very, very difficult. So the last question I'd like to sort of wrap up with is this. I'd like you to, and I'm gonna make it a little bit personal for you as well as broad. So imagine senior living. I tend to think in 5 or 10 years out, but imagine it in 5 or 10 years out, and maybe even bringing it more personal to you. Tell me about the kind of senior living community you'd like to move into. I mean, you're obviously decade, 2 decades, 3 decades away maybe from doing that, but I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think the type of community that I would want to live in, it would be, from an environmental perspective, a comfortable place, nicely designed. I think these are kind of the foundational things, right? It's got to be, maybe interesting, something that looks, appealing when you walk in the door, has a nice floor plan, et cetera. Okay, we can all agree on that. I think where where I think I would like to see that differentiation is in the way that a community facilitates my continued education, my continued networking with interesting people. And that's why I say, with the neighbors and those types of things. And we see some of that in our communities. But for me personally, I think that's where I would really thrive in a community, is with, and maybe there's ways to connect business to that, even, as a again, personally, as a business person in a sense. I think as I age, I'll want to continue to be involved in projects and do interesting things that involve business, but at a maybe a slower pace or less hours during the week, and have some recreation sprinkled in there. But I don't think I'm going to want to just sit back and play golf and watch TV. And I think there's a lot of people, myself included, who are going to want to continue to do things late into life.
Yeah, and that sounds very much like how I view retirement is. I like what I do a lot, but at some point in time, I'd like to have a little bit of more freedom to go do some other things. And so you're just, from my perspective, you're hitting on all cylinders. I had a conversation with somebody in the last few weeks. I can't remember if it was on a live stream or otherwise, but I really liked. And somebody said, I don't get why only old people can live in senior living. Why shouldn't everybody be able to live there? Yeah. And I thought that was kind of a really intriguing thought, right? So anyway, Jamie, this has been a great conversation. We are about out of time here. Okay. I appreciate your taking this time to visit with us the week before Christmas, and I hope you have an amazing Christmas and New Year's holiday season.
Yes. Yeah, same to you. Great to be at the end of a good year, and look forward to celebrating over the next couple of weeks.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.